Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're working on this lovely chunk of Coober Pedy Opal. This is from the Outback Opal Hunters, the blacklighters, but a viewer bought this and sent it through to me to work on, and that's Evelyn Jane. We looked at the opal in the past when I did the unboxing for it, but today we're actually going to cut it. Now, before it goes under the knife, we're just looking at it dry here. You can see that this is one of those pieces that is very much like glass. So you can see a lot of the fractures are very much like you'd see in a broken piece of glass. It's a pretty hard piece of Coober Pedy. It's nice, it's got a bit of colour. There is one major issue that I'm a little scared of, and you can see it just here. So running straight across here, you can see there is a severe crack. It's a pretty deep crack. It looks like it copped a hit, and it's cracked down to about here. So it hasn't gone all the way through, but it is pretty deep. There's a good chance we won't be able to get rid of that. There's some unusual markings across the face. It hasn't been rubbed or anything. This just looks like it's how it's shattered. And man, if this was bigger and hadn't lost all these pieces, it might be an absolute huge winner stone. But as it is, it's a bit under 20 carats. I weighed it at a bit over 18. And yeah, it's got a few things to remove. Around the edge here, we'll get a fried egg look. That's when you've got the common opal sitting right up against the precious opal. We don't like fried egg looks. Now, Evelyn's a great wire wrapper, so the shape and everything isn't too important. So I'm just going to cut straight back up to there, right where the precious opal meets the common opal, and we'll see what we naturally come up with as a shape, because the whole stone's got pretty nice color. It's a little bit potchy, but it's just got bands of color going through it. We'll chuck it under some water now and actually have a look. So here it is underwater to give you more of an idea, and you can see what I'm talking about. They've just got these bands of color with a little bit of potch going through them. It's not too bad. It's a fairly nice gem though. You can see when the colors are on, the colors are definitely on. So we should be able to just tidy it up, shape it up, polish it up, and then yeah, Evelyn will have a fun time wire wrapping it. And I'm sure with her skills, she'll make it look $1,000,000. So let's get it under the knife and see what we can do with this glittery piece of opal. And we're off. Because of the amount of exposed precious opal on this one, we don't actually have a lot of work to do with the 80 grit sintered diamond. All we're going to do is get rid of that potch edge that was giving it that fried egg look. And it's a fair bit of potch, but we'll get through it with the 80 grit in no time at all. And then we're going to do most of the work for this opal with the 600 grit sintered diamond. You can see here we're starting off just working all the edges. I like to make sure that I've gotten rid of all the edges first. Not because it's going to do any harm to me, but because it's going to slice up your resin burrs like you would not believe. And these things don't care. These things are perfectly fine with opal. It's not going to wear out all that quickly. You'll go through 10 sets of Nova burrs before you go through these sintered diamonds. Do most of your heavy lifting with the sintered diamonds. I think that's the biggest tip I would give my younger self, because I've worn through my 280s pretty quickly. And then you can see here at the end of the 600, you get that nice little foggy look, and I've just attacked all the little areas that I don't like with a texter. Because the sheer amount of fracturing on the faces of this opal, there was a lot of stuff to get rid of. So you can see I've got texter all over the shop, because I only gave it a quick little rub over and then decided to look at it dry with a loupe. And you can see here, it's not the lines that are the important part, it's all those little pits that the texture seeps into. All of those have to go. And you'll notice that I'm not just drilling directly on the texture, I'm going in a very wide area around it. You don't want to drill little pockets into your opal. It's much harder to work, much harder to get into. Here you can see I'm working a lot of the edge before I even try to get that texture mark, because I know that it's a very deep chip and I'm going to have to work all these edges out anyway, or your Nova points aren't even going to reach there. You've got to be able to make sure you hit all these areas again each time you go up grits. So you'd want to work wide areas. And even though you're not cabbing, a lot of the time you do want a nice kind of smooth surface. None of these really sharp dips or straight up holes in your opal. Makes it much harder to work, and it just doesn't look as good. You can see here we're almost through it, just working on this last side. This last side had some really deep fractures though, so we have to spend quite a bit of time. This is easily the most important part of this entire carving. And you can see these ones are pretty deep. I've swiped over the top and barely any of the line has disappeared. And here you can see that it's really seeped into a crack. You can actually even see it just from the light. So there's a lot of work to do on this side. But you can see that the 600 grit sintered diamond, it makes pretty short work of it. The 80 would just be chipping away here, so you don't want to do any of this face working with the 80. You'll just cause more chips out of it, and you'll have to get rid of them. So now you can see that it's nice and foggy, ready for the novas, no sharp edges, no deep scratches, just fog, and we hit it with the full combo, the 280 grit nova black, 600 brown, 1200 grey, and then finally the 3000 pink, or rose as they like to call it, and then finish off with the super cerium oxide. Now, the most important thing to take away from these burrs, a lot of the time we're just doing the same thing. So in this case, we're just hitting the entire surface. A lot of the time we spend more time on the 280, but I spent all that time with the 600, so we don't need to worry about that. The most important thing to keep in mind though, is that the 280 and the 600 grit, it will remove stone. It'll remove a lot of opal really quickly, especially that 280. It does it in a gentle manner so that it doesn't cause chips, but it's still not something you want to just absent-mindedly hit the entire surface with. You are removing opal. The 1200, 3000 and the cerium oxide you don't need to worry about so much. They're not going to remove a lot of material very quickly, especially things like the cerium oxide. The 3000 grit can remove. I've tried to do a little bit of testing on it, but it's so slow that it's hard to measure. The 1200 will remove stuff, but not to a significant amount. So you can kind of absent-mindedly hit them. Just make sure that your Dremel burr is the only thing hitting it. You don't want any of the metal or the shaft or anything like that to hit, because that will set you all the way back to the 280 or even the 600. The 600 sintered diamond, and you really don't want to do that. Do that a couple times and you'll be kicking yourself because you're just burning time. Alright, and here we are. It's not a flawless gem, but it's pretty nice. So this is one side of it. Really, it sits flat on its back like this. So it's a bit of a shield kind of shape, but it is a little bit uneven. Hopefully that's okay for Evelyn and a wire wrapping. If not, I'll probably be able to make some tweaks to it anyway. This side is pretty nice. It faces pretty well. It's got a nice play of colour, and you can see instead of being a shattered face, it is a nice smoothened out face. And then on this side, unfortunately, this side is the side with most of the problems. So if we have a close look here, it looks like almost in line where the colour goes into a bit of a potch line, but there is definitely a crack that goes through there, and it goes through pretty deep. Luckily enough, it's not destabilized the stone or anything. You can see there it's come in. It's not like a healed kind of crack. It's definitely one that's come post digging it up. And as a result of that, you can see there's the crack and then there's a few minor little chips around the edge of it. On this side, there is one little issue which may not come up on camera all that well, but over here, just there, you can see that there's a little bit of a chip. And you'd wonder why I haven't taken that out. This is one of those ones where it's kind of fractured inwards. Kind of like there's a hole that drills into it, but it's more of a little crack. So the further I go into it, the larger it actually gets. So at the moment I've left it there because it's in a nice coloured area, and going too much further I will start going into this potch backing, and we can't have that. We'd have to cut it off. And yeah, it's only a minor imperfection, and because of the major imperfection over this side, I've thought we'll leave that in and just ignore it, because you don't see it very often anyway. So yeah, an unusual little crystal opal. Well, more like seams of crystal in amongst the white opal, so it's a mix of white and crystal opal in different areas with a little bit of colour. Overall, not too bad. Bit of a unusual, unconventional shape here, but I could see this being wire wrapped into some sort of pendant. It's still a fairly large stone. It's going to be over 15 carats still. Now, I haven't done anything with the back, but all I'll do with that is I'll just grind that back to being flat with the color bar. Maybe on a slight angle to favor this face, because this face is the nicer one, so it'll hide this one a little bit, but I'll double check with Evelyn first and see if she might want it still to be rough. I've seen a lot of rustic kind of stones where they leave the backing on for wire wrapping. But me personally, what I do is I just flatten this out with a fairly coarse sintered diamond, and then it'll just be a smooth potch backing. And you just have this nice little bit of color here facing. Very unfortunate about the crack, but yeah, to get rid of it, it goes in an angle kind of in this direction, stops about here. So you could slice it down that way and then have two stones out of it, but really it doesn't look like it's fragile at all, and it's gonna hold together quite well. You can't catch anything on it. It's really not that bad. And who knows, maybe in the wire wrapping design, maybe there can be a wire that kind of comes over the top over here. And you could even just Dremel a little channel. I've always thought about doing this with my wire wrapping because I'm so terrible at it. If I just Dremeled some channels in the face and then just made the wire lay in those kind of channels, I'll definitely do that at some point. But really, a good wire wrapper probably doesn't need to do that. That's just something I'd do to cheat my way out of it. Because the thing I find the hardest is getting the wire wrap to actually hold the stone and secure it well. And channels would easily be a cheat code to get past that. Hopefully Evelyn's pretty happy with it. I'll let her see this video and she can message me on Facebook or whatever and we can do a couple little tweaks. It's got some interesting little patterns. It's even got some little kitty claw marks over in this area here, but it's hard to find the right angles for all of these patterns that I saw. There's a bit of mackerel, some rolling flash, there's a bit of everything really. Oh, I think I saw them there. There we go. Little kitty claws. Wolverine pattern, one of my favorites. But yeah, there you have it. A nice little shiny stone, no longer a fractured, chipped out little piece, ready for wire wrapping. So I packaged that one up. This has got a long trip ahead to get to Evelyn, and hopefully she can share what she does with it in the end, and I'll definitely have a little bit of an update or post it up on the Facebook or something like that if I don't make a video out of it. So I'll see you guys in the next one.